All right. Well, let's see if this works here. Okay, I'm live. Uh, Give me 1 second here. How's it going, everybody? If anybody's even here, gonna try something out today. So, how's it going, everybody? My name's Matt with Florida Man Fishing, and try to go out every weekend into Chuckaluski down here in Southwest Florida. And I'm going out this weekend after Thanksgiving. And I just did a stream on my bigger channel, so since I had everything set up, I figured I would go ahead and live stream figuring out how to fish this weekend using the Salt Strong smart fishing app, because this is one of the things I use to plan my fishing adventures. So if you go to saltstrong.com, you'll see it here. Come on, any day you want to load. You go over here, you go to smart fishing spots, you do that, and it brings you to this tool that they have. And this is where I'm at now in Delray Beach. But if you want to look here, the area that I like to fish is down here in Chuckaluski. Let's go ahead and shut my waypoints off. Don't want to give away everything here. But there's some spots you can save. As you saw, those points that you could save there, those are some spots that I've fished. If you're not familiar with Chuckaluski, these are my two favorite places to fish in all of Florida. Is Chuckaluski up here, and then down here in Flamingo. I do like fishing Flamingo better, but Chuckaluski is about a half hour closer to my house, so I would rather just get an extra half hour each way. So I'd rather get an extra hour of fishing in a day. So. And if you ever wanted to get here, you just take from South Florida, you take I-75 all the way across here. My internet's acting up. Come on, any day you want to do that. So you take Alligator Alley across, and then it's exit 80. So I-75 is Alligator Alley. Then exit 80, which is State Road 29, you just take that all the way south. You go through Everglades City and then down into Chuckaluski where it ends. So there's a few boat ramps here. And one of the things you can do is, if you're not familiar with an area, you can go down here and they have launch spots you can turn on. And there's one launch spot here that's public, and there's another one down here that's private on the west side there. I don't use that. I use this one up here in the corner. And what we're going to do is we're going to look here and see. Go down here. They show you the tides and the weather. I'm probably going to go out Friday. So if you look here, it's going to be about 66 in the morning, getting up to about 77 in the afternoon. So it's going to be a little cold when I go out. And whatever this red flag is, that's the tide marker that it's based off of. So there's one tide marker here in Chuckaluski. And then this is called the backcountry back here. So there's two places you can fish. You can fish out front or you can fish the backcountry. And normally what they say is they say you want to fish the front during the summer and the back during the winter because the water stays warmer back here. So the fish like to, it's shallower, they like to sun themselves. And it from all the freshwater runoff from the Everglades, it stays warmer there. But we're in a bit of a transition, so you go through here through the backcountry. So there's Chuckaluski. You got the main river here. That's the Lopez River, comes out front. Then down here you have the Chatham River. This is another tide marker they have. And then the third river down, this is Lossman's River. And when I go fishing, if I'm going to try and fish both places, what I'll do is I'll either come out of Chuckaluski and I'll take the backcountry all the way down to Lossman's and then come back in the front, or vice versa. And it's about a 70-mile loop. So I fish all spots all throughout all this. So I do about a 70-mile loop every time I go fishing, most times. So what we're going to do is we're going to check the tides here. We're going to be tides in Chuckaluski. And this is about, the Chuckaluski tide is about an hour and a half behind the Chatham River, the next one down, because it's further out. So we got a sunrise at about 6:45, right around 7 a.m. And they give you these scores for feeding. So you've got like feeding scores. So it says it's not going to be as good during the day. And then, of course, at the end of the day and the beginning of the day, sun up and sundown, it has it better. And when the tide is ripping, it is better. So it's looking like low tide is going to be at 8 a.m. and it is a slight negative winter low. So when I get out here from this boat ramp and leave in the morning, the tide's going to be heading out. So it's going to be coming all down all these rivers. And what you want to do is, what I've found and what a lot of people say is there's three things that you want. You want moving water, you want structure, and if there are any wading birds feeding on the shore. And that would include like herons, egret, great blue herons, kingfishers. It does not include ibis, though, because the ibis are not feeding on fish. They're feeding on other stuff. So if you see ibis, you're going to want to probably ignore those. And then you've got all sorts of layers. You can go here. We're going to turn on the oyster beds. So, and all this white is an oyster bed. And some of the structure you're going to want to look for is like fallen trees, oyster beds, points, because a lot of times with the points, the current will be flowing up against the point, and then there'll be an eddy on the backside of it where the water doesn't flow very much, and a lot of times the fish will stage up in those eddies, and eddies where the water swirls, so they'll stage up back there out of the current, so they don't have to fight the current, and they'll just wait for the bait to come to them. So if it's going to be in the morning, we're going to look for outgoing water. The water's going to be coming down this way out into the Gulf. So you're going to want to look for a spot that the water's hitting. And what was the wind doing this weekend? Wind is supposed to be pretty slack out of the north. So wind might not be a factor if that is accurate at 3 miles an hour. One thing I will say, the wind forecast is almost never accurate. It's almost always blowing way harder than they say. So what I do is I come here. You have to avoid all these oyster bars. So I come down here and I thread the needle here through these oyster bars and come around this corner and come out down here. And then you got another sandbar there. That's actually an oyster bar. Some of them aren't marked. And then this one is a sandbar. And then I come down and usually cut around the backside of Rabbit Key. So one place that I would, and if you're not familiar with here in Southwest Florida, the fish that we mostly fish for are snook, redfish, and trout. And tarpon too, but tarpon are, if you go for the tarpon, a lot of times it's going to be an all or nothing day. You're either going to get one or two really big fish or nothing. So I try to just not really shoot for tarpon, and if I see them, I'll try and catch them, but I don't really try to go for them because, like I said, it's like an all or nothing thing. So a lot of times if you go looking for tarpon, you can spend all day looking for them and not find them, and especially in the winter, they tend to not be here. They go further south, but I think we're early enough in the winter where they should still be here. So a few spots here that I would want to check would be, one of them would be down here in these islands here, because the water is going to be flowing around the Lopez and then coming down. So one spot I would want to try and look in the morning is going to be, the water will be pushing up against all these here. So you want to try and get in. And another one of the things you can do is you can turn on the 1 foot contours, where it'll show you, if you're not familiar with the depth anywhere, it shows you these 1 foot contours. I'm going to leave them off for the most part, though, because it does use a lot of computer memory. And since I'm streaming, it's probably not going to want to cooperate. So I'm thinking one spot I'd want to check is going to be all this, because the water's going to be, like I said, be coming down here, and it's going to be pushing up into this. So there'll be a lot of times you can find bait pushed up here. Another spot would be that I might want to check out is water will be coming here and pushing into here. So I might want to check in here. Let's see if we pull up this. Let's see if there's any kind of big structure or drop-offs. Because last weekend I went out and it was very, very cold. I think when we left the boat ramp in the morning, it was like 53 or 55. So it is warming back up this week, but on a week like last weekend, we had to look for deep spots because when it got cold that fast, up on the surface, it's very warm or very cold, and then since it dropped so fast, so the deeper water was still warmer. So I don't think that's going to be the case today, this weekend. But let's see, going to have some water pushing up into here. So I might check this spot, and then you got a point. So this is one of the points I was talking about. So the water's going to be flowing this way, right around this point. And then on the backside back here, you're going to have an eddy where the water sort of just swirls. So that could be one spot to try. And especially with this shallow bar here, is you're going to, it could be a lot of fish staged up here. Because, two things. One is you got the eddy here. And the other thing is once the water flows around the backside here, you got this bar here. So a lot of the predator fish can be staged up behind this sandbar just waiting for the bait to get pushed over it. But it is going to be pretty close to the end of low tide, so I'm not going to have much time to fish here. So that's a spot I might check on the way out. Let's see, another spot I might check. You want to just sort of follow this water flow. And where else are we going to be at? This spot is very shallow, so even though the water might be flowing up into here with the water tide going out, you would get stuck in here. So I wouldn't really want to check that spot out too much. This could be another good spot in here. I'm not familiar. I've never fished this pocket though. So let's see what the contours would be like in there. What kind of depth are we talking about up in that pocket there? Let's see. So 5 feet. Most of these numbers, he's going to be at the average low tide marker. So low tide, the mean low tide they call it. But since it's a negative winter low, it's probably going to be shallower than what these numbers are reading. But it still says 5 feet in there. So that could be a good spot to check out here. Because you're going to have the water, again, flowing down this river, coming this way. And as it's turning, the water's going to sweep into here. So you can have a lot of bait hold up in here. This could be another good spot here. We got another point here to check out. And what I like to do is, I think with this really low wind, it's going to be a real good day to use topwater. I never really used to use topwater, but Salt Strong, they have a lot of good sales on tackle too every once in a while. Once a month they give out something for free. You just got to pay the shipping. And I've gotten a few top waters like that, and the top waters seem to work a lot better when the water is real smooth and calm. The more waves there are, the harder it is to get those moonwalkers is what they call the ones that they sell in Salt Strong that I'm having a lot of fun with, that you walk the dog on. So this could be another spot here. Let's see if it's going to be deep enough to get up around the back. Yeah, you should have no problem getting up in there. So could be another point where there's going to be fish staged up here in the slack from the current. There shouldn't be much current in here, so they'll be staged up in here waiting for the bait to get pushed by. Because a lot of the fish there, they don't have to work hard. They'd rather not. So they like to sit in one spot where they don't have to fight against the current too hard and let the bait come to them. So that's one thing you always want to look out for. And then once you get into, we'll come out here probably in the morning. Head out here. So again, all the water is going to be flowing from in here out towards the coast, out into the Gulf. So, and another cool feature they have is if it's an area you've never been to, they've got these things called the smart spots where you can turn this filter on, and they all change and over here it's based on color. So red is hot, yellow is great, pink is good, and purple is fair. And if I zoom way out here, you see them marked all over the place. And as you change the tide, they'll all change. And it sort of tells you how these spots work based on the currents. Like, for instance, if you wanted to click this one, it says your expected species are mangrove snapper, redfish, snook, speckled trout, It's good on the incoming and the outgoing, and it's a good, if you want to click any of these other ones, they don't always say the expected species, but it does say what you should be expecting. So if it's another spot you've never been to really, and you're trying to feel it out, you can use those. I haven't had a lot of luck with those here specifically, but this is also, there's literally hundreds of miles to fish here, so you've got all sorts of spots. So, but one other spot I might think about is, this is one spot here that I've always wanted to, I've tried to fish many times, because you've got this whole island and it's got this lagoon in the back, and it just, every time you drive past it, it looks like it would be so good to get up in there, but I've never seen any fish in there. I'm always so disappointed. I would just love to get back into this cove and catch some fish. There's just never any fish there. And I think it's because it's like facing backwards. So, as the current's coming out, it might blow into there, but then it's going to get sucked back out. So it's just a very odd spot. It just looks like it would be cool. And another spot here that you've got, so we'll turn on our layers again, or our 1 foot contours, and see here, because it all gets real shallow back in here. You can get into some trouble if you're back here and the tide is heading out and you get stuck. You're going to be stuck for quite a while. You're going to have to wait for the tide to flip. It'll be like a 3-4 hour adventure of you sitting on sand waiting for the water to come back. So a lot of these spots you're going to want to stay away from. Like up in here, I know it gets real shallow. Like this whole area here on a low tide is out of the water. So with the tide coming out, you're going to want to steer clear of this. But again, the water's going to be flowing this way coming out. So this could be a good spot. Like I would try to fish any of these islands here. And so the current's going to be blowing here. You can fish this one. This side is probably going to be splitting around this island. I'd probably fish this side better because it looks like it's going to be a bit deeper. You see it says mark 2 feet, 3 feet. Over here it's only 1 foot. You do have the 5 foot little hole there, which could hold some trout. But I've never tried that. That could be good on the outgoing. And then once the tide flips and starts pushing in again, you could fish this side. This would be real good with the current pushing right into that, coming back in. It could be the same thing here. Once the tide flips, you could push this. But what I was really wanted to do was just fish a few of these areas, then come down here to, this is Chatham River here. So this is the next tide point. If you look here, you saw it was like 8:30 low tide there. So you want to fish there as the tide is moving, and whenever it goes slack tide, you got about 45 minutes where the water just stops moving, and when the water's not moving, there really aren't going to be many fish. So you want to try and avoid slack tide. So I'd be fishing that first area over by Chokoloskee and that first river on the way out. That's called Rabbit Key Pass on the way out. Then once the tide starts to slow down and slack up, I'd come down here because it was about an 8:30 slack tide there. So by 8:30 here, the water should already be moving back in. So then, and as you can see, some of these places get real deep. The closer these lines are together, the faster the drop off is, if you're not familiar with these contour maps. So so one spot you could fish, I'm going to shut these off. These are a little distracting here again. And then they also have a few different satellite views. So you can do the normal satellite. You can go up to the high resolution where it changes a bit. You lose the labels of all the places. But, sometimes if you want to see what something looks like, you can switch back and forth. They have the normal, they have the high res, and they have the Bing satellite, which is, I feel the Bing is the worst of the three. So I usually go between the normal and the high res here. This particular area looks like it's better on the normal map. But the issue is so any of these spots here, this is going to be some of the fastest moving water in Chokoloskee. So sometimes if it starts the very beginning of high tide, you might want to fish this when it's just starting to move, because when you're in the middle of the tide, it's very hard to stay still here, even with the trolling motor. So but this could be one spot to check out here. because all the water is going to be pushing back in. So once we finish fishing those areas, the tide flips. I'm going to want to come through here probably. And this is one spot that I would fish, this little pocket here. This is another one, this point here. Let's turn these back on here. The point here, because you see it gets real deep. There's some 12-foot spots here, 14-foot spots. We got 20 feet deep. So it's very, very deep here. And the water is going to be moving very fast because it chokes up here into a choke point. So another spot you could fish as the current's coming in is I would probably stage up like right here and then cast up this way on the corner, because when you retrieve your lures, you never want to be working against the current when you're retrieving, because bait fish don't usually swim against the current. So if a predator fish like a snook or a redfish or even Goliath grouper they have here, they see something that looks like a bait fish swimming against the current, they start thinking, they're like, that doesn't look right. So with the tide coming in around this corner, I would think about staging up here with my trolling motor in my boat and, casting up here, because then you're retrieving your lures back this way with the current. So, you could do that here. You could stage up here, fish this whole area, pull your lures back. Another spot you could do is you could stage up here. That's how you would fish the points, is, you'd stage up behind the point, because again, you're going to have an eddy back here where the water's not going to be flowing that hard. So you can stage up here, so that way you don't have to fight the current too much, and then cast up here and pull all your lures back, so that way your lures are going with the current and looking natural. Could do the same thing here. You could post up like back here. The current might be moving a little stronger here, but you can again throw up here, work this point. You could come up here, work this point. Same thing with this point. Let's see here. Where would I? This could be a good spot up here. I've never really looked at these oyster bars here. So this could be another good spot, assuming that it is deep enough to get in there. Yes, it is. We're 11 feet deep, and then it gets up to about 7 and 5 there. So I'm not sure that that's actually an oyster bar. That might be incorrect, because let's check the high res. There's something there. Okay. So I would probably try and fish this right at the beginning of the tide flipping if I did. And again, this one I'm not sure. I would definitely check it out, but I'd have to see how the current was flowing here as it's coming in, because could be a little weird. It's sort of dog legs off that way, so it's looking at a map, sometimes the way you think the current's going to be moving, but it's probably going to be pushing up here and then around the corner or something like that. But it could be going either way, really coming up this way. I'd have to see what this current looked like in person. But I would probably assume that the water's going to come up here. This is the deeper channel, so it's going to be running a lot more here, but I would think it's probably going to creep up this way. So these are two interesting little... 3 little oyster bars to check out there. And let's see. So this is there's 2 rivers that meet in one. There's the Houston or Huston, I don't know how you say that, and then there's the Chatham down here. But and then they sort of, if you zoom out, they're going to both go back into the back country at different places here. So one goes that way into this bay on the north side, and the other one go past Watson's place. It's going to bring it into this one over here on the south side. And then this is another bay that I've been really wanting to fish, because these are all oyster bars here. Let's check the high-res map here. But the issue is, the last few weeks I've been going out, the wind has been blowing so hard that this whole bay has been blown out, because it's been blowing like 10 to 15 miles an hour. And I've seen people out here fishing these. So these are definitely oyster bars that I want to check out with the tide moving. And with the wind forecast this weekend at 3 to 7 miles an hour, if that is even close to accurate, this should be a good weekend to finally try and fish these oyster bars. I know there's some very interesting spots here. Like I came back into here and you see this color change, how this is dark and this is much lighter. I went back into these 2 bays straight freshwater back in there. There were cichlids and gar, and I didn't see any bass, but it was looking like very bassy water as well. But I saw a lot of cichlids, a lot of gar back there. So there's a lot of spots. The further up this way you go, especially depending on if there's been a lot of rain, the salinity can be real, real low, and it can be mostly fresh water back here. I see gar all the time. But the interesting thing is at the beginning of this river, I saw like a 20-pound Goliath grouper because the water was crystal clear. Saw like a 20-pound Goliath grouper swimming through this river, and then I was like, oh, that's cool. There's a Goliath grouper. It can't be that fresh. And then I got back into the two rivers, straight fresh water. So, it's very, very interesting back here. But anyways, I digress. Let's go back and look here at some spots we might want to fish in the Chatham River. Let's see. So the water's going to be coming here. Let's look up some contours. I don't remember. I don't fish the mouth of this river very much, but so I mean, and the other thing is with it being cold, you got these sandy banks here, so. But again, I was going to say you can catch fish sunning themselves here, but that early in the morning, probably not, because you got to remember that the sun is rising in the east here, so all these trees are going to have this pretty blocked from the shadow in the morning. So this might be a better around noonish or early afternoon day. You got to let that sun get up. But since it's east facing, so you're going to want to find some sandy banks and bays like this that are on the west side and it's open on the east, because then the sun will hit these first thing and start heating this water up. So like we said, if it's going to be in the 60s in the morning, the fish might be feeling a little sluggish and they want to sun themselves and warm up. So this would be a spot that I would try and fish if you can get in the morning, which you should be able to. It says 3.5 feet up on the shore. Since it's a negative low tide, it'll probably be about 2 feet deep, but my boat can run 6 inches deep if I lift the motor and pull it. So I could definitely get in here. This could be some interesting spots to check out as well. You've got an oyster bar here, so you've got structure. You got a lot of oyster bars here. It could be cool to get back up in here. Get back in here and sort of stage up here, and then you could work your lures along the side of this oyster bar because the water is going to be coming here. You got a little channel. It's going to be moving early because it's a choke point. It'll get moving faster. So I might want to check this point out, and then even back into this bay. You got a whole oyster bar along both sides of this. This looks like it could be very interesting to check out. I think I've overlooked this in the past. So this is actually looking like a very nice area to try and fish. One spot that I know I've fished is in here. If you can, so there's a big sandbar somewhere. I think at the sandbar, I don't think these contour maps are 100% correct, because there's usually a big sandbar right here, pretty much all along this part. So you got to come all the way around here, and then you can sneak in the back of that sandbar and get in here. I know you can catch redfish up on this, sunning themselves. If the water's clear, which it should be, with only a 3-mile-an-hour wind, there could be some good sight fishing opportunities here. Or another thing that some people will do that I'm not very good at, because I'm still learning to pole my boat. So if there's any wind at all, I'm not very good at poling. But as the current comes in, a lot of people go up into these bays, because you see, I mean, it says 1 foot. So it gets real shallow in here. A lot of these areas can be completely out of the water at low tide. But, you know, as the water comes in and starts rising up, you get the redfish and the snook that start pushing up onto these flats as soon as there's enough water, because, you know, all the crabs come out and stuff when it's dry and they're feeding. And as soon as the water starts to rise up, the predator fish will rush in there to try and pick off all those little crabs and stuff and shrimp before they have a chance to, you know, get in their holes and hide again. So what you can do is you can push up onto here. You kind of have to have a flat skiff, a poling skiff. So you can lift the motor, pull yourself up on here, and just sort of wait to sight fish the fish as they come in. And I mean, there's dozens of places you could do that at. You could do that all along this shore. You could do that all along this shore. You can do it up here inside Pavilion Key. There's a few spots in here that get out of the water at low tide. That's more a summer strategy, but like I said, I think this weekend should be warm enough that you can probably still catch some redfish and some snook on the outside shore doing that. But I'm definitely thinking this spot is looking very nice. I'm going to mark this actually. I'm going to take a picture of these GPS. And then up here in the corner, it has the latitude, longitude. So I'm going to take a picture of this for sure, these coordinates on my phone, because I'm going to check those out for sure this weekend. So that's one spot I for sure want to check out. Another spot that could be interesting is it could be here. These oyster bars look very interesting as well. Looks like it's gonna be real shallow in there, so I might have to wait till a bit into the incoming tide to check those out. But I'm gonna check those out as well. Let me take a picture of this, and I'll plug it into my GPS when we're leaving the dock in the morning. And again, up here, you're going to have the water is coming up here, but it's going to slowly get around this corner, so you're going to have a lot of moving water here as well. I know you can squeak through this river here. I've done it. So, you know, the water will be coming through here. You got some choke points, a lot of cover here from all these mangroves. So in the morning, if it's not too cold, assuming this forecast is going to be right, you can squeak in here, push through here, look for fish. You just got to be careful. There's a big oyster bar here. There's a big sandbar there. You got some sandbars here. I know I've squeaked through here. I don't remember. It was probably fairly high tide when I did it based on these contour maps, but I have cut through there before. And then another thing you can do is you see all these creek mouths coming out. It's not going to be a good weekend to do it because the tide is coming in all day. But, you know, if you ever have an outgoing tide, you can always stage up on any of these creek mouths and fish up into here. Because, you know, a lot of times there'll be, the fish will be coming out. The bait fish will be getting sucked out with the tide. So you can fish these. You'll get predator fish staged up at the mouths of these creeks. All these little creeks all the time like these. On the tide going out, but again, tide's going to be coming in. So this could be another interesting spot up here to check out. You got some more oyster bars up here. It's going to be a bit shallow, but you can squeak in here just fine. It's nice and deep, and then you can try and pull your way up here. So that could be another spot because, you know, the tide's going to be pushing in through here slowly. It's going to be going real fast up this river, but it should be working its way up through these islands too into here. So that's going to be another spot that I want to check out. Oops. So I'm going to take another picture of these coordinates here. And then, but then again, so this is all the front side stuff. And if it's too cold for the front side, none of these spots work, then I'm going to have to come into the back country and try some of these spots out. So, you know, one good spot could be in here because tide's going to be coming in the morning, and you got some more oyster bars here. A lot of structure, a lot of islands, so the water's going to be pushing in. You could try the front of these islands. All these waters, these islands going to have water moving. There could be bait fish up in there. I probably wouldn't suggest going up this way because it looks like you're going to get blocked by an oyster bar there. You definitely want to try and stay away from oyster bars. Those are not friendly unless you know you can get over them. Don't try it because those things will ruin your boat. And you also don't want to ruin the environments for all the fish and all that. So this could be a cool spot to try. With the currents coming in, you got these oyster bars. I would probably try this spot too. You got a lot of structure all around, oyster bars. I'm going to try that one too. And hopefully there's two people watching. Hopefully somebody's actually learning something. I was hoping I was going to get some more people here. But I just figured since I had my whole setup going for my big channel live stream that ended at 9 o'clock, I would just live stream me trying to find some spots for this weekend. And then let's see. And then really any of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, probably fish those spots. And then as I come through here, I'm just going to play it by ear. Just eyeball it. Come through here, see if any of these spots look better than others. I tried to fish some of these last weekend. I think it was these ones down here because I was trying to hide from the wind. The wind was coming out of like the northeast. I tried to fish some of these. Did not have any luck at all. But like this looks pretty juicy. This whole coast here with the oyster bar along the whole thing, especially if the wind is going to be coming out of the north again, mostly northeast. So you could be getting some wind push here too. Wind blown current as well as the current coming in here pushing up on there. Another thing that you can use for your use these satellites for is if you look for some shores that have like a sandy beach, like something like let's try and find one here that looks like it would make for good sight fishing, like this one probably. This isn't a great example, but you see how it's kind of beachy there, and it's real. There's not a steep drop off. You could get up here and either trolling motor your way along this or pull your way along it, whatever you want to do. This could be some good sight fishing up in here on this side. I've come up in here before because I thought these were oyster bars, but these are pretty much all just giant weed patches. The last time I came through here, this whole bay was almost all weeds, so I didn't even bother. That was too much of a headache. Again, this is that river that I said I tried, but it was all fresh water. This could be a good example of a place that you could try and sight fish, like down here. It would be a good sight fishing opportunity, maybe here too. All along this island would be very good sight fishing. At spots like this, like here, that'd be money sight fishing right here. But again, no, with that sun rising in the east, you might get some pretty good sight fishing here. You might have some issues with the shade here like this. You kind of want some better. You don't want too many overhanging things. It's kind of a balancing act. You want some overhanging trees to have some structure, but you also don't want to have too many overhanging trees because if the light can't get there, then you can't sight fish it. But you could always just blind fish them. Work the whole shore and blind cast. And then you come down here. So if I came in here, this is about halfway. This is a really cool area down here, but it's a pain in the ass because this whole little channel here is a no wake zone. Then you've got these two giant bays, which are cool. I've seen schools of ladyfish in here, a half-mile long, with just birds dive bombing them for literally hundreds of yards in every direction. So that's super cool. These could be some good sight fishing areas in here. But the issue with here is you can get real low salinity in here. I've come in here after storms before, and it's been the same thing. There's just been gars swimming through here. I have a very high-tech way of checking the salinity of the water. I stick my hand in the water, and then I lick my hand. If it tastes salty, then it's salt water. If it doesn't taste salty, then it's fresh water. Very scientific approach I have to testing the salinity. And then come through here, and then you get stuck in another no-wake zone through here. And then you come back out into this half of Lostman's, and then you have this is another tide marker here at the back. And the tides are always very minimal back here. So there's never a lot of flowing water because you're so far back. Because if you look here, high tide was at 1 a.m. and it was only plus 0.7. The low tide here isn't until 10 a.m., which, I mean, you saw it was 8 a.m. at one spot or 7 a.m. at one spot and 8:30 at another. It's 10 a.m. back here, and it's like a negative, call it a 0. So not a lot of current back here, but there are a lot of spots to fish back here, because if we go to normal, I mean, look at all of these. There's rivers, there's creeks, there's points, there's all sorts of stuff you can fish back here. You got these whole bays back here, but then depending on how much gas your boat uses, I wouldn't suggest going more than this loop, because this is the loop I do, and it's 70 miles. I know my boat I've done 96 on one tank of gas. So I don't really like getting too far back into here, because you might have to start worrying about fuel at that point. But, so that's another spot. So then if you came down here, so that was Onion Key is the back half of Lostman's. And then we'll get to the front half of Lostman's. It should load this tide marker any second now. Come on, any second now. I will say this area here, incredibly treacherous. This water, this right here is the fastest moving water you will ever find in Chokoloskee. And a lot of stuff in the water back here. So if you do not know this area well, I would not recommend coming down to Lostman's. If you don't have Florida Marine Tracks, the chip for your GPS for the backcountry, and you don't know this area, I would not come here. It is incredibly treacherous. It really goes for all of Chokoloskee, because like if you didn't know those oyster bars were there, that whole bay that was full of oyster bars, you get into a lot of trouble there. And but this place especially, I would not recommend coming down to Lostman's unless you know the area very well, or you have the FMT. Well, really, even with the Florida Marine Tracks chip, I still wouldn't really recommend coming down here. So, but it's a 7 a.m. low tide here. So again, the current's going to be moving pretty good in here, and with it coming in, one thing you could do in the morning is you could sight fish all this, but again, with the sun rising in the east, you're probably going to want to wait till probably 10 or 11 to try and sight fish this, because all these trees are going to be blocking the sun here. And then if you were trying to sight fish, you're going to be looking right into the sun. So probably wouldn't recommend that till midday at the earliest. There's some good fishing in here, but this side is very treacherous. You can only make this pass at high tide, really like halfway to high tide. If the current's ever going out, if it's even close to halfway to low tide, don't even bother coming down this way. You will get stuck, and you will get stuck for quite a while. But anyways, I keep distracting myself and digressing. Let's see if we go to the high-res map here. Let's see what the high-res map looks like. So one spot that could be cool though on the incoming tide is now this is, I said, very treacherous here. So like, let's see if we pull up the contour map here. I think this is all going to be like 1 foot or 2 feet. Up there, unless this is the area I was thinking about, but this could be interesting, fishing this oyster bar on the way in. I was thinking you could fish this whole side here, as the current's pushing in, you're going to have current moving along this whole side here. This could be a good spot to fish. If this is indeed an oyster bar, you might think about stopping there. It's always the inside corner of the river is always going to have an eddy. It's going to be moving real fast on the inside, and then it's going to slack out here in the back. So that's why you have sandbars here on the inside, is a lot of time, the sand will be getting pushed in, and then it'll slack up and just build up here. So if you came around this corner, I might think about, going a little slow, seeing if there's any fish sunning themselves here. Let's see. This could look good for sight fishing here on this side. I know this spot sticks out of the water at low tide. I've wanted to fish this, but I've never come in right when it's got water over it. It's either too deep or too shallow. Beginning of the incoming tide, though, this could be a cool spot to check out. I know this is a big bar here. This is another interesting bar that this comes out fully at low tide, but in the on the outgoing tide, this is a good spot to fish here. A lot of bait stacks up here. Because if you zoom in all the way, what I've done here is I've been here when it was the beginning of outgoing tide, so the tide was coming out here, and this was all underwater at the time. And there's a deeper channel in the back, so what it was is there was bait stacked all up on this sandbar here, and then the redfish and the snook were staged up back in this deep part on the back, and they were just, every time the fish got too close to the deep spot on the back, they would just fire up from here, blow up on all these bait, and then dive back down. So that could be an interesting spot. I don't know if that was a one-time deal or not. Been wanting to go and check that out. Where does this even go? Oh, that goes back into Big Lostman's. Okay. This could be a good spot here on the incoming tide. You know, all the tide's going to be pushing up against this whole shore. This could be good to fish. You're going to have some nice moving current there. It looks like it might be a little shallow. So you might want to wait till a little bit later in the tide to try and fish this, because if it's only a foot deep, it's probably not going to be enough water for many fish. But if it's all red mangroves and the roots are all bending over and the water can get up underneath it, there could be fish staged up in the mangroves. So it could be worth blind casting depending on the makeup of that shore. So the water be coming. This could be another spot. You could check this bay too. This might be good. This looks like a huge drop off here. This would probably be a pretty good spot. Yeah, because look, it goes from a half a foot deep to 9 feet deep. So this could be a trench. I'd probably try and work this drop off. I'd look for this drop off on my depth finder, and as I found that, I would probably work up and down this drop off once, and then even still work up into here, try and get some snook, some redfish off here. But even down in this drop off, this could be good for trout. You know, it gets to 10 feet deep. If it's still cold in the morning, first thing in the morning, I'd go heavy on the weights and drop down here and look for some trout hanging out down here, because you know the water's going to be pushed up here. In Chokoloskee, you don't really need grass flats looking for the trout as much. I would definitely, this is looking like a nice deep hole for trout here. I'd probably check that out. Again, it gets even deeper here into the 11 feet. This could be a good hole too for trout. It's saying this is 9 feet deep, and then it goes up to 0. I would definitely probably try and work this whole shore here. Looking like it could be pretty good for sight fishing, but again, you're not going to want to try and sight fish this early in the morning, because with the sun rising out of the east, you're going to get shadow from those trees and be looking right into the sun. But this is an interesting spot. I might try and figure something out here, take a picture of that. Now, I do have some honey holes that I'm not going to go ahead and tell you guys about, because if it's a honey hole and everybody knows about it, then it's no longer a honey hole. So, again, with the current pushing in, this whole side here, you got a nice deep drop off here. This could be real good. I'd look for trout all through this channel here, because it gets deep. And there's going to be a lot of good moving water in here. I'd look for trout all through here. This is going to be a deeper spot. Huge drop off here. Look at that. It goes from half a foot to 13 feet. And that can't be more than 50, 60 feet. So this is a huge drop off. You'd be good working this whole shore here with this big drop off. And again, because since we're in a transition here with the weather, you're not sure if the fish are going to be deep or if they're going to be shallow. This is going to be a good place to figure it out. You can work both at once. Same down here. This looks like I don't know if I would trust this contour map saying it's 25 feet deep there. That looks like a shallow spot, not a deep spot. But that could be interesting. They're showing a lot of depth changes all through here. I'd want to check this out on my depth finder to see what the hell, if that is actually accurate. Let's see. And as the tide is pushing in again, this whole bay in here could be real good with the tide. You know, tide's pushing up in here. I would try and work this whole thing. Could be real shallow. So if you don't have a skinny boat, if your boat doesn't get skinny, you might want to, you could probably still get halfway in here, but this could be a whole interesting bay to check. You know, this whole shore would probably be good to check. Even maybe this point, if it, depending on how deep it is at the time, this could be a good point to work. I would try and weasel my way up in here to look for fish in here. But anyways, that's it, I think, for now. Oh, that could be good. This whole shoreline here with of this island, with the water pushing up, it's going to be blowing against this whole island. That's another good spot to check. And then as we get back here, you're going to slowly get, this is back to Onion Key again in here. So this is that other tide marker. So anyways, that does it. That's a real quick introduction to Chokoloskee. If you've never been here, highly recommend checking it out. It's a very difficult place to fish, to learn. But as you can see, there's hundreds and hundreds of miles here, of probably thousands of miles of shoreline to fish. So definitely, once you learn this area, it can be very rewarding. I will not try and BS you and act like I know the place. I'm still learning it. I've only probably been out 20 or 30 times, and that may sound like a lot of times to fish a place, but as you see, there's so much area to cover here. So I could be fishing this area for the next 30 years and still be learning stuff, I'm sure. So thanks for joining me, and I'm bringing my buddy out this weekend that's a professional videographer. So if you're watching this video, even if it's not live, I recorded this the 27th of November 2024. Look for a video coming out soon that is going to be of this weekend. Hopefully my videographer friend will get some cool footage, and hopefully I can put us on some fish and get a cool video. So make sure you look for a video on that, and we'll see how right I was about any of these spots. Take it easy, guys, and have a good Thanksgiving if you're watching.